I'd ask you to join me in a historical prayer. As you know, President's Day is next week. These are the words of our first president, George Washington, from his daily prayers. O eternal and everlasting God, I presume to present myself this morning before thy divine majesty, beseeching thee to accept my humble and hearty thanks, that it has pleased thy great goodness to keep and preserve the night from all dangers poor mortals are subject to, and has given me sweet and pleasant sleep, whereby I find my body refreshed and comforted for performing the duties of this day, in which I beseech thee to defend me from all perils of body and soul. Increase my faith in the sweet promises of the gospel, give me repentance from dead works, pardon my wanderings, and direct my thoughts unto thyself, the God of salvation. Teach me how to live in thy fear, labor in thy service, and ever to run in the ways of thy commandments. Make me always watchful over my heart, that neither the terrors of conscience, the loathing of holy duties, the love of sin, nor an unwillingness to depart this life may cast me into spiritual slumber. But daily frame me more and more into the likeness of your Son, Jesus Christ, that living in thy fear and dying in thy favor, I may in the appointed time attain the resurrection of the just and eternal life, blessing my family, friends, and kindred. Amen. Now the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I ask the clerk to call the roll and call the meeting to order.
Measures Elkins.
Present.
Davis.
Present.
Blanton.
Here.
Constantopoulos.
Present.
Thompson.
Here.
Graham.
Present.
Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6, consider approval of the minutes from the January 28th, 2021 fiscal court
Motion to
meeting.
approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
One discussion, and then just a clarification on page 1, third paragraph from the bottom there, discussion of payroll issue for previous. Does that need to be inputted in there since there was no official action taken on that? Just there was discussion.
That was what was on the agenda.
Yeah, I don't know what's the question.
I guess since there was no action, does that even need to be put into the minutes?
I don't think it really matters one way or the other.
Okay.
It was on the agenda.
Yeah.
So-
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 7, do we have a public comment sheet? Okay. Item number 8, review of the treasurer's report. Any questions for Alicia?
Just one question. I'd called her and I told her it'd probably be good. I had just asked her in regards to on the financial report why the health insurance fund was not showing as far as balances and any kind of transactions, and she explained to me the situation. I thought it'd be good for her to just fill in the court if she would.
Sure. I did contact like DLG, and I told them my situation, and they advised me that because the insurance fund is kind of similar to our payroll, our revolving account. We take the money from our general, our road, and our jail funds based on the approval of the court, but they would put it into the insurance, and we pay the bill from there. So they told me that it would not be a budgeted fund because we would be double counting like the transactions. But because they are coming out of the general, on the road and the jail already.
That makes sense? Okay.
And then you can just provide this report with us on each of the
Yes.
monthly reports.
Yes, I can.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 9, consider approval of the transfers. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 10, consider approval of the bills list. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries. Item number 11, a note in your minutes pursuant to KRS 64.5275, pay increases for county judge executive, jailer, county clerk, and sheriff as calculated by the Department of Local Government. Those are mandated by the state, if anyone has any questions. Item number 12, note in the minutes, report of the audit for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. Any questions regarding those audits?
Maybe a comment, Judge?
Sure.
I know that there were several items that were pointed out to be of issue or that the auditor took issue with. I think that there have been, some were on the jail, some were on the fiscal court itself, but I think there've been some new hires that should alleviate some of these issues, but I sure would like to see that done. I'd like to make sure that the fiscal court, I'd like some way to be assured that we won't be getting gigged for these same things that we get gigged for year after year after year. And I do know that we do have a new finance officer, we do have a new treasurer. I did notice one of the gigs really validated one of our moves because we were gigged for a retroactive transfer in one of the audits. So I'd like to make sure we're not doing those things going forward. I asked the same question last year and the year before and the year before that too. But still we get gigged for the same thing over and over. I understand it's not your administration. These audits are for 2017, 18, and then
It's, these two are 2018 and 19.
correct, yeah, but it actually started in 2017, July of 2017 through June of 2018, and then July of 2018 through 2019. But I don't know if there's any way to assure we don't do these things again, but
Well, I think part of the issue is simply, when you're just receiving the audits that give you the advice you're supposed to follow, this is 2018 and 2019. Obviously, that's, if you go by calendar, that's, over 3 years ago.
2021.
So, we know what they want from those years now, and we will adjust accordingly, but I think it's probably unfair to judge any action before we get the advice from the auditors. So I can assure you that Alicia will be looking at those audits, and I think that once we have a full year under her stewardship as treasurer, you'll see, less of those things going forward.
Yet, I don't even expect to see much change in the next audit that comes up, because that's gonna be for the past, we've not seen these things to correct it for the next audit.
Exactly.
One going forward, I would expect.
You can't act on what you don't know.
That's correct, I have nothing further.
Okay?
Judge, I got a comment kind of related to this. There was, last year, I guess it was, there was also an audit that Mike Harmon did of some county attorneys, and we never received a copy of that. And as I recall, because I looked up online, there were some recommendations in there that we should have had and followed up on. I don't think I have that with me today, but I know there was some recommendations, but we never received that officially as a fiscal court.
Do you have some documents you'd like to forward to us on that account? Are you familiar with what he's talking about?
I mean, Robert and I have not discussed this.
No,
but-
we haven't. It just come to mind just right now when.
But I think what he's referring to is that Auditor Harmon's report, and certainly I think that he should have filed a copy with this court. I think what the audit said that perhaps Magistrate Bland's referring to is that the fiscal court was supposed to repay $91,000 to the
Something
county
like-
attorney's office for certain.
Oh, that's the audit that was reported in the newspaper
Correct.
months ago. Okay.
And up to $291,000 total, depending on what the further interpretations were. I'd submit that is not a discussion that we've had, but it's certainly one, obviously, that I'm aware of, so.
Okay.
Just came
I
to,
can, I
just
can
came
get
to
you a
mind.
copy of that if you'd like it. I'm sure.
Well,
we
I
can work
can
with the county
download a
attorney
copy,
on
that's
that.
fine.
Okay. Item number 13, Consider approval to pay training incentives to the following elected officials. Magistrate Greg Elkins.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second. Judge, I'm gonna recuse on this, but
Certainly. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 15, consider approval of an order to share costs relating to Verna Hills Stormwater Project.
You missed one, Judge.
Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I did. Discussion of pay increases for magistrates and county attorney.
Judge, I'll make a motion that we decline the pay increase for the magistrates for the cost of living. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to decline pay increases for magistrates for cost of living. Is there any discussion?
And I just want to reiterate that. I don't know that DLG had instructed that normally we had never voted on these, and I think it was last year that they implemented that you had to vote on them. And I just don't think it's ethically right to have to vote on something that you can benefit from, so that's why I made that motion out of the gate.
Who was the second?
Travis.
Oh, okay.
I will just note that it is interesting. I think most people would think if you're voting on your own salary, you should recuse yourself, but if the fiscal court's voting on it, you'd have to recuse all the magistrates, so you couldn't have a vote.
that was my point that I made this morning, is I think we should refuse this vote altogether. And even to decline it, I think that's not ethical for us to vote on our own increase, up or down.
Well, you know, before it had always been just like the other raises. It was just like everything else. And I don't know, maybe it's worth revisiting with DLG to see if there's another change, because they've evidently changed their mind at some point, so they could change it again, so who knows?
Yeah.
Judge, I think if I could, I think DLG, and I guess respectfully disagree with the position they put fiscal courts in all over the state, all counties, where they've got magistrates and county commissioners voting on their own cost of living rates. I think I would echo what Magistrate Constantopoulos stated a moment ago, which is, it really raises an ethical issue about whether or not this body, votes on increasing its own compensation. I mean, we're obligated under the law to set the pay at the end of our term for the next term, but that's for whomever are holding those seats in the next term. It may be an all-new court, it may be some new magistrates, it may be no new magistrates, but for us to affect our own pay, I think puts us in a real dubious position, and I don't think it's warranted, so I would support declining the cost of living. And I know it doesn't amount to much, I think it's only like maybe $10 or $11 a month, but nevertheless, I think it's a bad statement.
Well, I think the point is we shouldn't have to vote yea or nay either way.
Well, if the legislature, Judge, wants to take action, or the DLG has an interpretation of existing statutes where it could set any cost of living increase for the body, I have no objection to that, because that's not something that our magistrates or county commissioners are asked to vote on.
Mhm.
But if DLG's interpretation is that we've got to be in a position to vote on this, I think that's, I don't agree with it, first of all, but secondly, I'm not going to support, increasing my own pay in the middle of the term, even if it is $11. So, but I agree with you. I think, DLG, it's something that they need to address, and if it's something that the legislature needs to clarify, then that's something they need to take up in the interim session. Maybe the state and local committees of each house need to review that, or APA needs to review that, but it needs to be clarified.
Well, if you think about it, since we already discussed the constitutional officers and how KRS basically sets those without a vote, maybe those of you who are a little more active in the Magistrates Association should reach out to the association and see if they could do something, reach out to the legislature to make it mandatory as well, one way or the other. That way we don't end up with these conflicts of interest.
The only thing that's not addressed here is coroner.
Mhm.
And it's just, there's no mention of it either in either place. And he's a constitutional officer as
Sure.
well.
Judge, I guess in light of the conversation, discussion, I'm gonna follow through with my thoughts. I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to vote for my own increase up or down. So I'm gonna recuse.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, there's a motion on the table that has been seconded. It is to decline the increase in magistrate salaries. All those in favor of declining the increase respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion does carry.
And I'm not going to vote at all. I will call JC at the Magistrate Association, try to get some feedback from him, though.
Thank you. A related item, I don't know if we should have maybe made it 14A, but increase for the county attorney. Does anyone want to take that up?
I had spoke to the county attorney and asked him what his thoughts were on it, and I told him I'd ask him to speak to that.
You know, it's a county attorney's position is a paid position. You know, like many people in this community, I have obligations and children in college and my own affairs to tend to. But I think you'll recall, Judge, that you know, I declined a raise last year for mostly the reasons have been articulated here regarding magistrates, that it didn't appear fair to me that I would get a raise and that they would have to do without. Though I counseled before that I thought they should take the raise to protect the constitutional office and not leave the cupboard bare for folks who will come in the future. The compounding effect of passing on these raises could affect people generations from now. But considering this particular purpose, and my thanks to this fiscal court for its consideration, but I think with our neighbors suffering as much as they have this year, that I'd ask the court not to consider a raise for the county attorney's office, and maybe sometime when times are better, we could talk about it then. So, thank you, but I respectfully decline.
The county attorney stated his wishes. Is there any motion on the table, or should I move on to the next item?
One thing, Judge, in regards to what Magistrate Blanton there said in regards to the coroner, I think since he's not one of the mandates, I think you ought to speak with him and ask him if he wants to take it, and if we need to take that up at the next meeting, then we can take that up.
Okay, I'll check with the coroner on his thoughts.
Actually, Judge, the whole item just says discussion, doesn't say anything about any action for any
Right.
of this, so.
Yeah, that's why I said, do we have a motion? Exactly.
I just would make one comment in discussion, Judge, if I may.
Sure.
And this is the county attorney, and I very much respect county attorney Oakland's comments. And I know he declined this last year too. And if that's his wish, I won't make a motion. Well, I would support giving him the cost of increase. You know, the other constitutional offices that most of us consider quote-unquote full-time positions, county judge, clerk, jailer, sheriff, all get this automatically. I'm not real clear on why county attorney isn't included in that, except for, I know part of his budget, including his salary, comes from Prosecutor's Advisory Council. I guess that's still the case. No, it was for many years. But that's very much if there's any full-time position, it's certainly the county attorney. And that's nothing to take away from any of the others. I know they all work hard. But again, I think that's something that either DLG and or the legislature needs to clarify. And I think we need to work on that, because I think that, I know in the case of Mr. Elkins, having known him for many years, I know he closed his practice to be a full-time county attorney in business, made that sacrifice, which I'm sure was significant, and this is his job. You know, the rest of us have other jobs or businesses or careers that we pursue as magistrates, and I think it's like that in most counties. But that's not the case with most county attorneys. I mean, this is their job, and many of them either don't have a private practice or they have a very, very limited private practice. This is their living. And I respect our county attorney's position on this, but I would submit that we either need to address this next year at this time, or when it's time to set his salary or the county attorney's salary for the next term, we need to address it at that time and I guess, for lack of a better term, make up the difference, because I think this is a loophole or a hole in the payment issue for elected officials. I think needs to be corrected, not by DLG and the legislature, at least by us in the next year or two. So that's all I'll say.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing no motions, we'll move on to item number 15, consider approval of an order to share costs relating to Verna Hill Stormwater Project. Do I have a motion?
Still moving.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I looked at the bids. Exactly what is the extent of this project? Is it all on private property? Do we have easements? I did see the two bids and that sort of thing.
I'm going to ask Shelby Gill, who is the, is it chair of the homeowners association or president? I'm not sure which.
Whichever one they want to call it. I want to take my mask off. The scope of the project that we're looking at, the stormwater drain does run through private property. It's borders, it's mostly on Mr. Miller's property. But you got to go back to 1976, whenever the county took possession of the infrastructure of the streets and the stormwater drains. That belongs to the county. Very technically, we should not even have to come up with half of the percentage. Last spring, Mr. Miller called me, and I went up to his house. It was raining like a dog that day, very heavy. Water was spewing out of the ground, approximately 3 feet tall in several places because of the amount of water that the rain had caused. And the way the flow of the water is, it comes down the hill and out through that drain. Mr. Miller's property had approximately 6 inches of water standing in his backyard, which would normally should have gone on out to the interstate, the way the storm drains are been placed out there. After a period of time, we went back up to Mr. Miller's, and we did some digging along that stormwater drain. 5 of the pipes, the 4-foot pipes, have separated anywhere from 4 to 6 inches. Okay, which is it going to spew out of the ground every time? No. It's not going to do that. I understand that. But we've got it uncovered. We want to replace it so that the water doesn't go over on Mr. Miller's property. And I think the two bids, I'm no expert on getting this done, so I've got some advice and got a couple of bids from good people. The low bid is always the winner, unless I know that there's something that I don't agree with in that low bid. And also, after some inquiries of the two people who submitted the bids, we elected to go with the low bid from Prolon on this. This project, if approved, we are going to, my understanding from talking with the judge and Mr. Davis, the association is going to pay the entire amount of the cost up front. Or I'm not paying it all up front, but we're going to pay for the work to be done. Okay? Once the work is done and approved, my understanding is we would be reimbursed 50% of the cost of the project. Technically, you own that property, that sewer, that storm drain line. So paying half of it, to me, is very reasonable. We've agreed to pay half of it.
So Verna Hills actually put the project out to bid themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think I would tend to disagree with you that the county don't own the pipe. It's on, and I would assume there's an easement for this work to be done on Mr. Miller's property? There is a.
We are doing it in agreement with Mr. Miller. We are a private industry.
But is there,
entity.
is there an easement that would allow the contractor to get on the property?
I don't imagine he would object to granting temporary.
My point is, if there's not one, we certainly need to get one.
Well, let me, may I, Judge?
Sure, go ahead, Magistrate Davis.
When, just to clarify a couple of, well, maybe more than a couple of things. So, Mr. Miller had reached out to me, and I think, Judge, he might have communicated with you last spring when we had heavy rainfall. He's the gentleman that owns the property on Larry Court. I think it's 806
Yes.
Larry Court. He was very upset over the amount of water that was coming out of that storm sewer and onto his property. So the storm sewer, of course, pulls water off from Larry Court, which is a county street. He initially wanted the county to address the problem. He thought, and my recollection, reaching back almost a year, is that he felt like that repaving work we did out there a year ago was to blame, or at least partial blame. So Road Supervisor Curtis looked at it. He concluded that there certainly needed to be work done, but it was well outside of county road right of way. So in that instance, the road department then could not legally go out and start doing work outside of road right of way, as we all know. In talking with both Shelby and Larry Neville, who was his predecessor as president, is now moved from Burnt Hills, we had a lot of discussions about it. Larry and I especially concluded that, it was water coming off from county road right of way. So that there is some, I think, obligation where we've got aging infrastructure to at least do what we can to try to help. Though it's not appropriate to have road right of way, or have the road department go outside of road right of way to do it, or something. So that's what started the conversation of looking at the ordinance. And the ordinance does have some language about cost sharing. It doesn't say 50-50. I think that's my general assumption as to what that was intended to be. I don't think it was ever intended for the county to pay more than 50%. So in talking with Larry and Shelby and yourself, Judge Pace, I think everybody concluded that was, if we worked out a deal with the association, that was the fair way to go about it. My thought was, really, in order to kind of give the HOA and its members sort of ownership of this issue, that it would be best to have them, select bids. That was my recommendation to them. Bring those to the judge and to the court for consideration. And I also felt like it was probably best for the association to work out whatever agreement they need to with the property owner, because it's their contractor, they're signing the contract, they're initiating this work. We would be coming at it just from an aspect of partial funding. So we would be helping. Now, that said, I think, is it best if either the contractor or the HOA gets at least a temporary construction easement from the property owner? I think that's, you could say that's best practice, and it's most consistent with the ordinance. But we're not the ones contracting with the contractor to do this. We're not, in this scenario, we're not paying the contractor. We're coming at this strictly from a funding aspect. Now, what the HOA does, and Mr. Miller, I know, have talked to Mr. Miller and heard his, being upset over this. I have little to no doubt that he would agree to whatever HOA wanted him to sign, or whatever the case. I haven't talked to him in some time about it. Talked a lot with Shelby and Mr. Neville, previous president. So I know he very much wants it to be done. I know HOA very much wants it to be done. So just to clarify, this is really a funding issue for Clark County. I think the ordinance contemplates a scenario in which the county would either be
Yeah.
going out and doing the
I think
work,
you're right.
would be doing, either having the road department do it, or having a public works division or employee do it, if we had such a department, or paying a contractor directly to do it, and we do the bid. But of course, that's a little bit different very different than what we're talking about here, which is really just funding. So, I know that this is sort of undiscovered country for the fiscal court in that we've got so many stormwater issues that are unresolved on private property, and we've all gotten calls about them. I thought this would be a very good opportunity to, as a, for lack of a better word, a trial run, to see how this could work. Because here we have a body that's willing to take the initiative, pay half, find a contractor, oversee the work, and I think it's a good opportunity for us, and it would be a big help for this property owner and the homeowners association, because even though this stormwater is only on the infrastructure we're talking about, it's just on this property, it obviously serves many people. I mean, this stormwater isn't just to benefit 806 Larry Court, it benefits that entire portion of the subdivision. It just happens to, of course, be on this gentleman's property. So he's bearing the brunt of water that's, you know, coming off of a public street, so.
Well, that pretty much is the premise that we've been working on in getting these bids. Because talking with Chris and on my board, and they think that this is not the best solution, but it's a practical solution for both parties.
One more question.
Sure.
Since this is dealing with roads and streets, I assume we can use road money to pay for our $3,000?
I'm not, that's more of a county attorney question than I'm willing to answer. I don't know about that. Those are restricted funds.
Well, it is going to be used for road improvement, is to get the water off the road. I mean, if the pipe is backed up and the water pools in the street, then the road gets deteriorated, so I would certainly think that would be an eligible expenditure of road funds.
Before, and Judge, I don't, depending on what County Attorney Open's legal opinion on that, my thought would be, I know we've got a considerable amount that we get put in the US 60 infrastructure line item that has been thus far unspent and probably will be for the rest of this fiscal year. So this bid, I think actually, the order reflects $59.37, and I think Judge is at $59.95 is the revised amount, the updated amount. So you're talking about a little under $3,000, right around $3,000. My suggestion or my thought would be to take it out of the US 60 infrastructure line item. Relatively small amount given for how much is in there, and it is an infrastructure issue in the US 60 area, so I think the argument can be made. But County Attorney Oakland might have.
Well, the statute, I think, is very clear, and that is that those road fund dollars are only to be used for construction, reconstruction, and maintenance of roads and road right-of-ways. So I don't think it's a permissible use for stormwater projects. But beyond that, I would offer that, of course, there's that administrative formula where the fiscal court can use some part of it in the course of administering the use of those dollars. So I don't know how much of that remains in the fiscal court's budget.
Further discussion?
Yeah.
Magistrate Elkins.
I just want, when I first heard of this project, I thought it was a great jumping off point to resolve maybe some of these stormwater issues that each of these magistrates have, including myself in our district. We all have them. Some of them have lingered for more than 20 years. We kick the can down the road, and I think this may be a great way to look at remedying some of these issues. I know we can't do them all one year, this year, next year, even the year after. But I think if we tackle 2 or 3 of them a year, going forward, 5 or 6 years, we may look around and have most of them resolved. There's some really large ones and some not so large, I understand that, but I support this project. I thank Magistrate Davis, and I thank you, Judge, for the work you guys have done on this. Shelby for his patience. I agree, it's not great for either side, but once the project's finished, it is great for both of us. So, I mean, everybody gets a little bit of something they want, and everybody has to take a cut too, a haircut as well. So I think it's a great project, a great start to remedying some of these stormwater issues, and I'm happy to see us working on it.
Further discussion?
Yeah, one thing, Judge, I just want to echo what Magistrate Elkins said, and I appreciate Magistrate Davis's work on this project and coming up with a potential good start to addressing some of these stormwater issues. I know that myself and Magistrate Elkins and Magistrate Graham had served on a stormwater committee, and this may be a good pilot and what I would like to see moving forward, because I know two issues in my district right now are kind of the same thing, where the water is running off the roadway and the storm drain that's actually carrying the water from the roads has separated. So, what I would like to see, if this project does work out well and it looks like a good model, is that, in maybe our upcoming budget in July, that maybe we allocate some money for these type of projects, and then these projects could be submitted to either to the fiscal court directly, or if you want to reinstitute the stormwater committee and they review those and make recommendations as we have funding, for those projects, then like Magistrate Elkins said and Magistrate Davis, we can start knocking out some of these stormwater issues that we do have. So with that, I support this project, and I think it's set up very well. It eliminates any liability from the county. Not an attorney, but that's just the way that I see it. So I support this.
Magistrate Thompson?
Just a couple comments, Judge. Master Elkins and Master Constable stole my thunder a little bit, but just a reminder that I have a pretty good list in my district as well, just like you all said. I had brought it up in the past. It's been a while, form a committee or whatever it takes to look at these things and prioritize them. This particular one is a real problem. Mr. Miller had emailed me, it's probably been over a year ago, and I have pictures, still to this day, have pictures and video of this problem, and it is a real problem that needs to be addressed, and I will absolutely support it. But I just don't want anybody else's district, not just mine, but anybody sitting around here to go without being looked at, because we don't want to fix one and not address the others as well. So I just want to point that out. And Judge, just 2 points. First of all, I agree with everything that was said. You've got them all over the county. And I would hope, Judge, maybe as you're formulating, and the treasurer is formulating this next fiscal year budget, we can create an actual line item for this, because there's definitely need for it. And I know we won't take care of it all in a year. And this is, normally, I would like to have a line item for this, but I think it's urgent enough before it ought to be addressed before these spring rains start. And we've got another, catastrophe out there on this gentleman's property. So I appreciate the support. Now, the other thing I'm going to add, Judge, I don't know if we need to address the amending that amount in the order.
Yeah, we do.
I do. So the $59.95, Judge, was
The most recent, yeah, he had to, I think, increase his bid for materials. Is that the correct number?
5996.44. Yes.
So I'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Michelle, if you could note that.
Okay, what was it again?
Magistrate Elkins.
5996.44.
41.
Oh, 40.
44.
Oh, 44.
Yeah, 5996.44.
And do you want to, Magistrate Davis, did you want to amend that to come out of the US 60 infrastructure?
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment as well. My thoughts on this in particular, if you look at the ordinance itself, it's 25 years old. I know that a consistent complaint that I received coming into office was about the lack of action on stormwater, and we were able to research and find this ordinance, and I guess it was written probably by Bob Rose. It's been so long ago, but it seemed, what I like about it is, it requires the property owner or association, whomever, to have skin in the game. I think if we set a precedent of 50-50 funding, that makes it to where it's not just somebody trying to get something absolutely for free. They have to be motivated enough to invest a little bit. And I agree with those of you who have said we should probably set up a budget line item. It's already in my thoughts for next year, and recomposing some sort of a committee to look these things over to stay within the constraints of the budget, because obviously we don't want to get ourselves in a deficit situation. But I see this as a trial balloon, an opportunity to work out any kinks we may have for the future, and obviously to address an issue that's just been lying in wait in Clark County for dozens of years. So I'm all for it too.
One other, just housekeeping, I don't know if
Sure.
it has to go in order, but, and I had spoken with the county attorney about this item as well. It's mentioned in the ordinance, and I think it would be a good idea here, is if the parties, and by that I mean Mr. Miller and the HOA signed a release of indemnification for the county, so the county's released from any liability, since of course we're not doing the work, nor are we selecting and overseeing the work of the contractor, so county attorney Elkins would be.
Can you draw one of those up for us?
Sure. Did we already do one?
I knew the order's been around, the proposed order's been around for a while. I don't remember if there was a release drafted or
I think
not.
Mr.
There may
Miller
be.
remembers.
I don't know. Do you remember, but we didn't send you an order, did we, Joe? I mean, a release.
I'll take care of it.
Yep. We'll make that part of the process beginning now from here on out. Whatever we do in the future, we'll be sure that we have waivers. Obviously, if we're going to be committing county tax dollars to making repairs to stormwater issues, we ought not be putting ourselves in positions of liability. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
Judge, one question on that. Do we need to authorize you to sign any paperwork in regards to that?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, County Attorney Elkins, but would a copy of the order resulting from this work today suffice as evidence of the fiscal court's will, or should there be an additional authorization?
Well, I think the order would suffice for the, to capture the project, but somebody may want to, not have drafted yet, somebody might want to review and sign the release on behalf of the county, accept the agreement from the Landowners Association and Mr. Miller, again, have a draft release, but I think should that be the case, I think their authorization would be important for you to review and execute as necessary the release.
Perhaps it would be appropriate to bring a copy of the release at the next meeting and have a vote then, or you want to do it right now? What do
I
you
think you'll delay your project.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's do it right now.
I'll
then.
make a motion to authorize the judge executive to review and authorize a release of any liability for the county in regards to the stormwater project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion also carries. Now moving on to item number 16, consider approval of an order to surplus and transfer property relating to the Clark County Road Department. Do I have a motion?
Motion second.
Any discussion?
Just one question. Will this vehicle need to be replaced at some point in time by the road department, or is this just truly a surplus vehicle? I mean, we're not taking anything out of service, are we? I guess is my question.
No, this vehicle's already out of
Okay.
service.
Okay, that's good.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 17, review and approval of the Clark County Fiscal Court health plans for 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I will note that the codicil or addition that Mr. Constantopoulos made to our last motion is probably what we should try to do in the future to avoid having to piecemeal these things. But this is simply approving the documents that go along with the order we've already approved. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We'll now have magistrate comments. Magistrate Graham.
Well, I have had a lot of concern by people about the property owners around the dead animal removal. I know we discussed it and trying to have a meeting or some informational meeting that where everyone can learn a little about it before it's all approved. So I think we're moving in that direction.
Magistrate Thompson.
Just for the benefit of the public, Judge, that vehicle that we just surplus from the road department is to benefit that program that Pastor Graham talked about for that animal removal.
That is correct.
Should have mentioned it when we were in, but I didn't think about it.
okay?
And then just one other question, what's the update on the boiler? I think it's done.
The boiler is ready, yes, it's operating right now, so the heat you're feeling is from the new boiler.
And it's small. It's no bigger than the furnace in your home. It really is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing how technology
Oh, yeah.
changes over the years.
Judge, do we have an estimate on what the final cost is gonna be? I know we allocated up to 150.
It's gonna be under $100,000, but I don't have the final number yet.
Thank you, Judge, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Judge, if I may, I don't want anybody to leave the room with any confusion, though it has very little to do with me. I think I heard Master Thompson ask whether or not the vehicle surplus here related to the dead animal removal. And in fact, this relates to one that was crashed. It's not, relates to the dead animal. We did that last time, I think. Right about that?
No, this
No.
one was being surplus.
No, this is the one that's being surplused over. I'm gonna get you a copy of the, there you go.
Okay, I thought we did another order for the Keiko.
No, that'll be on the next agenda.
Okay.
We were
I thought
just
you
a little-
asked me
yeah.
for today.
No, we ended up deciding that we didn't need that one for today. We'll use it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
I just made time to get it done for you.
I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Master Constantopoulos,
No comment, sir.
okay. Master Blanton,
Yeah, just my comment on payment for the stormwater project. That was my whole intent was to, and I didn't even have to mention it after I mentioned how we were going to pay for it. So I'm glad everyone else agreed that we do need to budget for that and find the right source of funding, no matter where that's from, to get that approved and rolling. But that was my whole intent, wasn't it? And I didn't even get the chance to follow up. So thanks to the rest of you for seeing the need to budget that. And that's all I had.
thank you. Master Davis,
Just as a follow-up, Judge, on the stormwater, we talked about it already, but I want to mention there was I know at least one other stormwater issue in Burnt Hills that Shelby and I talked a lot about, that he actually had agreed to take care of himself, hopefully with the board's help. So really, this court only really considered the worst of the two. There was a third issue out there about a year ago that was actually in road right of way. It was a few months after the paving had occurred. Road Supervisor Curtis was able to resolve that. I think that's worked out fairly well. So that was in road right of way. We were actually able to handle that in-house, as I say, for that reason. So I appreciate the court's support for this. I do hope that, like I said, we have that line item in next year's budget. It's a substantial enough money to at least take care of a few of these. I know, we've got a lot of other commitments and concerns, but it's a not long neglected area of infrastructure that I think the county is not been diligent enough with in years past, and I think I'm glad to see. I think we're all generally like mind, and these things need to be addressed. My thought, Judge, just to start the conversation is, I think if we could initially limit it, and maybe limit it for good, to those stormwater issues that are a result of county, street, and road right-of-way issues. In other words, if it's an issue that's caused by a state road or a city street, or whatever the case, some body other than Clark County, that be considered. But I think that we're off to a really good start, Judge. And I appreciate the court's support.
I will say, moving forward, just from my personal experience, the people who have mentioned the stormwater issues the most to me are probably in District 1 and District 2. So the rest of y'all, I know that you've had people reach out to you as well. So just be sure to bring those things up moving forward. Master Delkins?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see what I have here.
I know, Travis, that's
How about motion to adjourn? I forgot about you, Judge.
So we had every week we have a meeting from 8:30 to about 9:30 with the county judges and mayors. And typically, we've been talking about COVID issues. This morning, we spoke with Secretary Gray, and I'm just going to try to give you a little update on what's going on with that, along with what I've talked with Becky over at the Health Department. We have about 3,000 people on our wait list in Clark County. With the number of vaccines we're receiving currently in Clark County, that would probably be at least a wait of 6 months. So what we're advising people to do is to look into some of these other larger centers, such as Kroger Field over in Lexington. There's a website you should be familiar with, kycovid19.ky.gov. There's also a Find a Vaccine hotline. If people, aren't familiar with the website or aren't comfortable, would rather talk with someone, that number is 855-598-2246. If you are hard of hearing, there's a number to assist you as well. That number is 855-326-4654. Hopefully we can do what we can to get as many people vaccinated as possible, but I think it's fair to say unless the number of vaccines we receive in Clark County starts to increase, the smart course of action that you should recommend to all your constituents is to be willing to call one of those numbers, look on the website, try to find other sources, or they may end up waiting longer than they would like. Let's see.
Can you give those numbers again, please?
Sure. First number is 855-598-2246. The second number for hard of hearing is 855-326-4654. Regarding what Magistrate Graham was asking about dead animal removal, I'm trying to schedule John Chisholm, who is kind of our conservation expert and is a bit of an expert on all of these compost issues and so forth, to come to our next meeting perhaps. So we're going to try to schedule that. I think he's going to be able to make it. He told me he has a meeting in Bowling Green that day, but he thinks he can make it back since it's an evening meeting. So Magistrate Graham should be right around then. I mean, it's going to be pretty close to then so far as about 3 weeks, I would say, but that meeting's in 2 weeks. Of course, Alan's out on the roads today, so I can't give you the 100%. He would know better than me if you would like to contact him. He's heading that up. The only other thing I have to say is please be safe out there. Keep in mind that we may have a pretty serious ice storm on the way, so try to take all the precautions you can. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned at 10:23.
Earl has the patient. Yeah.